Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this very fine Monday. I hope the heat is keeping you at bay and you're cool and calm and collected. Today, in the Zoom booth with me, I have a gentleman who's going to teach us about sensational stories from seniors, and I can't wait to break it open. Robin Curtin is our guest today, and he also goes by his pen name, Shawayne. Welcome to the program, Robin. I'm glad you're here. How are you this very fine Monday?
Oh, thank you, Kathy. I am wonderful. I'm excited. This is
Well,
a beautiful opportunity to be on a show that's really, really good for the community.
thank you so much. We do aspire to bring really interesting things to community. I have had a long time passion in working with seniors. Many of the community members know about that long time passion. Um, and it looks like you have a bit of a passion with it as well. Tell us a little bit, first of all, about yourself and how. I'm curious about the name thing because you have Robin is your name, and then you have your pen name, which is Shawayne. How about we tell our audience a little bit about how that got started?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I'm not hiding anything. It's just that how I got started in this came from a couple of scary car incidences.
Oh,
I was driving for Skip and I was sliding down the road and my life flashed before my eyes, but no accident.
wow.
And then another time I'm going through an intersection and there's an accident, and I saw an elderly person being carried motionless to an ambulance. And I said, that's it. I have to write my stories now. Because I've got
Right.
stories in my head and memories, and some of them are self help and some of them are just entertaining, but I had to do it.
Yeah.
And so as I got started, people were saying to me, that's fascinating. I wish that wasn't around for, before my parents passed. And a couple of people said, when you get up and running, will you help me write mine? That was really cool. So as I was thinking of a name, I'm fortunate to be alive because I have three siblings that died very young: Sean, Wayne, Sheila, and Robin and Colleen forms the Sherobins. So Shawayne Sherobins. It's in homage of my siblings.
What a beautiful way for you to bring your whole family to the conversation and to sort of, highlight the family as a whole. It's such a lovely idea. And I'm particularly interested about sensational stories from seniors because I know how many seniors do have incredible stories that tend to pass on when they pass on as well. And being a granddaughter, being a mother myself, and a grandmother now myself, I know how important it is to share the stories as, most of my family has passed on. And so to kind of, if I could have gone back to gift my grandchildren with something, for me, that's a really big deal.
Yes. Yes. I hear it over and over and over again. The challenge, Kathy, is that how do we reach the people?
Yeah.
There are many wonderful stories in the minds of somebody who's 75, 85. They have
Yeah.
challenges with the computer. They're protective of their information. They don't open up quickly.
Yeah.
And so when I created a patent pending process to help those people get their stories out, it won't happen instantly. In fact, it's more like somebody like you or somebody like Kim Plumley who they want to go to a parent or grandparent or an aunt or uncle or friend
Yeah.
and help them get involved. Um, but it's a passion. All businesses start slow. This will not be an overnight success, but I'm going to keep telling my story at senior centers, residences, associations, wherever people hear the story. It may not apply to them right
Yeah.
away, but if I can encourage them to look through the website and think of somebody who's maybe a little bit isolated, and yet they have a wonderful set of pictures and memories.
Well, I do know that in our community, we are very blessed through volunteer and Nanaimo to actually do some of that work. And I know that it's an intergenerational program that's called Helping Hands. Did this sort of start off with that sort of, beginning where you sit with a senior and you have a conversation with them? Or like how you talked about patent pending. I'm just curious about what does that mean?
Some people would call it a tech stack. In other words, you use this software, that software, this device, etc.
Mhm,
Um, but there are a couple of other processes that are proprietary,
mhm.
and they help me to talk with people.
Right.
For example, if you could imagine yourself being a little bit hesitant, but also a little bit desirous, you're really not going to open up until we've made that connection. So
Yes.
sometimes it takes a while, and I'm prepared to take time. Uh, Most of the publishing and writing industry is very expensive, and
Yes.
they're
Very.
in a hurry. So
Mhm.
you've probably heard the phrase time is money. They don't want to spend extra time on people that don't want to spend a lot of money. And
Yes.
there's the problem. There may be in time services, there may be collectives that decide, hey, we'll contribute money to a fund to help those people that can't write their book. I don't know. I'm open to any idea, but here's the essence of it. The motto of our company is before you leave this earth, please leave us your story. And however, we have to go through processes and create relationships, that's what we'll do.
Well, it sounds like an easy process, but you're quite right. There's a relationship that is often necessary in order for the stories to fully come out into fruition. And so having said that, I also understand that you're a published author, that you've written yourself 3 or 4 books, or you're on your fourth book now. I'm not sure which. One of them being Don't Let Your Anger Ruin Your Love of Golf, which I think is a brilliant title. Tell us a little bit about your own writing journey and then how maybe they kind of piggyback to create this amazing idea.
Yes, well, first, I created a couple of books to give people when they visit the site. In other words, you don't have to spend money immediately. And those books help explain a lot of the development and the reasoning. My writing started in grade two. I don't know about you, um,
Yeah,
but
pretty much actually. That my love of eating, in grade 2, paste in pink bottles and writing ABCs. And now it's cursive writing because we know that that's almost gone completely. But that's a totally different piece. But you're quite right. From our earliest memories, we were writing, weren't we?
in college, you write essays, but an audience of one, you either win or you lose, you pass or you fail.
Sure.
In business, it was more around the nature of you're answering people's concerns or you're encouraging them to buy a product, buy a service.
Mhm.
Then I went through a stint where I was writing legal documents for about 5 years. And that was pretty challenging, but they're also boring.
Very
Nobody really
dry.
want nobody wants to read it,
Yeah.
especially if it's very accurate and written for a judge. However, that's when I got the the experience of interviewing people.
Hmm.
And there are various interviewing styles. I like yours, but
Thank you.
there's Joe Friday, and he says, "Well, just the facts, man. If I treat seniors like that, they'll clam up and go away.
Yeah,
I
very
need
true.
to encourage them to talk." And I have a process. It's not really unique, but if at first they gather up some pictures and they organize them by age ranges or age phases of their lives, and then I have them look at a picture and just talk. The easiest way to write a book isn't so much to ask them the details. It's more important to jiggle out the memories,
Yes.
because the great story isn't really in fact finding. The great story is when they suddenly realize, oh my goodness, I forgot all about that.
Yes.
And at the time, my sister, she was doing this, and my brother Joe, he was doing that. And I think that's when I get excitement, because it'll brighten their whole day. Just that one little thing. It also creates a better book.
Yeah,
So
I see that exactly. And people do, especially when life is full of congestion, right? When we've got so much going on, as we get a little older, that congestion just sort of dissipates, but at the same time, so too do the memories as we're looking at different things. And so it's really important, as you said, to jiggle out, here's what's the prompting that brings it out. And before you go further with that, I'm curious about some of the surprises that you may have encountered along the way from that jiggling.
I find the easiest way to have a very senior talk with me is when they have their daughter or best friend right there with them. And it was
Mm,
actually it was the younger generation that brought me to them. And that's where, if you will, the resistance is quickly diminished, because, well, they're comfortable, they trust that person.
yeah,
So if your mom trusted you, she's more likely to feel as though she's talking with you. And I'm just taking a different route at it. Now, as you know, the technology is no surprise. I mean, you have a Zoom meeting, you record the audio, you transcribe it. Okay, boring. Now, the next set of editing is, how do I go and get the details that make reading enjoyable? For example, touch, smell, sights. Details about that. And I was walking down, I remember smelling the apples because it was August and they were ripe. That's what makes the story not just I was 6 and then I turned 7 and then I turned 18.
yeah,
It's not a story. However, on the other hand, the heirs, they want to know those kind of details. And I think the art of writing their stories is in how I'm going to put together details with memories.
yeah. So they do say the devil is in the details, for lack of better words. You'll forgive that very old idiom, but nonetheless, how have you approached the senior that, you know, that really is, yes, I understand a family member could be present, someone could be present in the process, but some older adults are not necessarily comfortable with the idea that they have a story at all. Some are, I mean, it's a generation that was raised on great humility. How do we pull that, into a dimension where they can actually see how relevant and how important their story is today, even when it happened in yesteryear?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I wrote a book specifically for that reason. The reality is, most people do not feel like they want to go out and brag about themselves.
Yeah,
And that the first judgment is, oh, you arrogant so and so.
right, right.
Well, that is not the only thing that causes hesitancy in a senior writing their memoir. And if I'm successful. And I say if because we haven't even started the business yet. I don't know how you found out so soon, but we expect to start launching in a week or so. And with that launch comes a book that I think is extremely valuable. And it's called Writing is a Wonderful Way of Living.
Great
And
title.
thank you. Boy, you're flattering me. I'm happy. Um, but the essence of the book is to begin with the whys. Instead of thinking of people judging you as telling your story in an arrogant or braggadocious way,
Mhm.
just consider your great granddaughter sitting on a beach, and one day her mom said, "Oh, when you go down to the beach, here, read your great grandma's story." And if they put themselves into that frame of mind, but it doesn't have to be heirs. What about if it's the community? So, for example, I have a friend, a very good friend, who was in charge of building the Nanaimo Expressway. What a story. But that one, well, yeah, his heirs will enjoy it, but what about the community? Reading
Yes.
how he had to navigate through this, that, and the other. Because I understand there's a little bit of a political backlash when that
From the
happened.
story itself, or from this particular story, you mean? Yeah.
So let's say I ask a person, I really would like to write your story. Yeah, thanks. No. Is it over? No.
No, hasn't even started.
So the other part of what we're trying to build is a community where people come back every day. They're not writing their book, they're reading stories of other people, short stories, 3-page articles, 2-paragraph comments, but someday something will be the trigger. So to say no and leave the sensational stories from seniors community would be a loss.
Yes.
To figure out a way to keep people coming back once in a while without using those harassing everyday autoresponder emails, um, I don't think seniors would enjoy that kind of approach. So we're building a community where people can come and they can stay for free. They don't have to pay. However, the greatest amount of content is becoming a member, and it's not expensive. A $50 a year membership to a community like this is intended to cause seniors, particular, not so much the ones that are active playing golf every day. They don't have time. They're not really interested. But think of their mom who hardly ever gets out of the house. I think we create this community, similar people will hook up with people from their own age group, similar backgrounds, talking memories, not debating current events. And the encouragement is to get people to want to be happy when they come in, to look to be happy. No swearing, no name calling, no arguments. There's enough of that in the world. This is supposed to be a place where it's tranquil, it's relaxing, it's safe, it's respectful to everybody, and it's extremely accessible for pretty much every handicap. I mean, we've done as much as we can do. You can't solve every problem, but um, by adding measures of accessibility for vision, for hearing, for epilepsy, for um, dexterity. Some people have challenges. So whatever their problems are, they can choose to navigate the website, and they're around and they're chatting and they're in the discussion room, or they read an article and they find somebody similar. That's when people start to chat.
Well, I think, sort of at the beginning of this part of the conversation, we talked about the community of seniors, right? And as they say, a dear friend of mine told me many years ago, water finds its own level, right? So you tend to find like-minded people coming to a site where they can actually develop some kinds of vision of themselves or what is important to them, and someone else shares those same values. So and I know a lot of older adults are very uncomfortable with making new friends in the public eye, maybe because they have some kind of walking or hearing impediment, something that keeps them from doing it. But it sounds like this particular venue will allow, through the internet, through your website, will allow people to actually create some kind of connection. Am I hearing you correctly in that?
Yes. And it's not something that I can prove. So, when we went looking for investors, oh yeah, well, show me the proof. Well, I can't.
Yeah.
All I can say is if I tell people that this is what I'm doing, I'm helping people write their memoirs and biographies and happy stories, and people say, "Oh, that's a wonderful idea."
Yeah.
Okay, are you in? Are you doing yours? Are you going to do your mom? Well, that's a different. So,
Yeah.
honestly, Kathy, we will see where the water rises to, but conceptually, it should be wonderful. Practically every business person always knows that it won't be as nice as I dream it, but I'm going to keep doing it because I only have one life to
Yeah.
live, and this is my passion.
And I don't even think that that's not the premise behind the endeavor, right? The premise behind the endeavor is to share stories. And I think that really at the end of the day, we all want to be seen. We all want to feel heard. We all want to read someone else's story. We all want to participate in that little voyeuristic side. I mean, I can tell you in my day, I've met hundreds and hundreds of older adults. And sitting down over a cup of tea and just chatting away, I find out stuff that I could never have imagined I would learn had I not taken the time to be open enough to hear, and not to hear to answer, but to hear to enjoy and to listen and to participate. And so whether or not the business side of it is, the next thing, who knows? But if you have had one person feel heard, then you've done your due diligence, you've done your job, right? And I think that that's important. How do people get their stories to you? Is it part of the process when they become a member to the website that they then have an interaction with you? Or how does it work for people to, you know, get their stories uploaded to the venue?
That process is technical, but we know where most of our people are at.
Okay.
They're going to be hesitant, a little bit reserved. I don't want to pay you before I know I want to do this and all those things.
Sure.
But the website is created to encourage them to read a few articles first.
Yes.
It's in the reading of the content within the website. For example, we have what we call popular topics, and it could be exciting adventures, romance, spiritual inspiration. How about pets? How about health? How about sports, where people talk about watching their children and grandchildren when they were doing sports? Or um, one reading room is called Hi Gramps, and
A
it's
great room. Love the
where
name.
where our members can go and share their memories as being a grandparent and how amazing kids are. They just always make us smile. So I believe that as a person joins and reads and then begins to interact, it's a process. I don't believe except for an exception that I'll come back to. I don't believe it's an immediate thing. In other words, you gradually help people become comfortable with the concept of talking about their memories for the purpose of leaving it to the community or their heirs. And it's not cheap, but there's one exception. For example, and I'll say, somebody who really is close to the end and you don't want to wait. So you decide that I'm going to get the ball rolling. You'll contact us and say, well, it's not really for me, it's for my mom or my aunt. But your gift is to enable them to do it. So when we compare traditional publishing, ghostwriting, typesetting, editing, and all of that, the cost of a $30,000 or 30,000 word book could be as high as 12,000 US, not with us.
Yeah.
And the reason is that we're not doing this for mega wealth. We're doing this because every one of the partners is a senior. We love the idea. We're not going to charge people an arm and a leg, but it can't be free either.
Well, and there's something to be said for paying a little something, something to get it done. People do tend to respectfully take things a little bit more seriously when they know that at the end of the day, there's a bit of a payment associated with it. Before we go any further, though, I can't believe we're already halfway through the program. We have been moving right along just so perfectly here. I'm going to take a quick station identification and I'm going to ask people to go get a piece of paper and a pen so that they can write down, get the information. So if they're interested in not only reading some wonderful stories, but perhaps they want to participate themselves, that's what we'd like you to get the paper for. So go grab that. And while you're doing that, let me tell you what's going on. So if you've just tuned in, thank you for tuning in to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM. I'm Kathy Holmes. I am your host. I am always delighted to be with you every Monday. I hope that so far you've had a blessed summer. Now, what I do want to remind you of, because we are in the time of year we're at, we need to be really careful of our air quality. We need to make sure we're consuming a fair amount of water. We need to make sure that we're looking after our neighbors, including older adults who may be staying indoors in the air conditioning because it's just way too hot outside. It's very easy to forget about people when you don't see them by normal. So it's important that we don't. If you know that there's a senior on your block, just go knock on the door and check on them, make sure they're doing okay. Also, if you have just tuned into Act 3 on our CHLY radio program, but you missed the first part, for heaven's sakes, why not join us on our YouTube station and you can watch the program there? All you have to do is go to Act 3 Media and Productions and find us, Google us, we're there, and then click on it, jump onto YouTube, and please don't forget to like and subscribe. You also know that the episodes for Shaw Spotlight were great. We're super happy to have the best of coming up really, really soon. So we hope that you'll enjoy some of those episodes. And in the meantime, that again, you take care of yourself and each other through these warm summer days. And that might just include reading a very cool story every day, perhaps from our guest who has an amazing website coming out, Sensational Stories from Seniors. With me again in the Zoom booth today is Robin Curtin, and otherwise known as Shawayne. I missed the last name for that, but I'll make sure that's in the chat box as well. Thanks for being with us once again, Robin. People are grabbing their pen and paper now, so in a few minutes we're going to give them the website. But in the meantime, I understand that yourself and a group of other seniors have come together to do this work. How easy was it for you to get them, your partners, to tell their stories in the process?
Well, at first, I think because it's how should I say it? It's socially desirable. Oh, that's a noble thing to do. It's easy for people to say, what a great idea.
Yeah.
It's much different for them to work with me because I didn't know any of this technology. when I started.
Yes.
I knew what I felt in my heart. I know I love to write, and I knew I would run out of my own stories. So from that little seed of I like writing, why don't I write other people's stories with them?
Yeah. Yeah. And then
But
your friends, how about, because you said you have some stakeholders or partnerships. Is it your immediate family that is your partnership, your
oh
wife
no,
and family, or is it
no,
other, no,
others, um,
others?
others. Yeah, it started with a good long-term friend, and when I mentioned that I wanted to do this the first time around, they thought it was a pretty good idea. And then things changed with his employment, happily, right at the right time when I said, "Well, I have this car and it's turning into a bus, and I don't know how to build an engine." So in
Yeah.
the publishing or blogging or networking industry, always the issue seems to be content. So content is the fuel that drives the bus, and I didn't know
Yes.
how to build a
Yes.
bus.
Yes.
So in building the bus, we tried this. Oops, that didn't work. That was a waste of money. And then we tried that, and oh, that's working a little bit, but it needs this, and all drives me crazy. So how
I
do
think
I?
we're all I think we're all in that place when we're trying to build something. It's some of my colleagues call it building the plane while we're flying it. It's sort of the same idea of, trying to narrow down what's the premise and then take it from there. But in the partnership, was your partner your first model for the story development?
No, no. Um, the first people that got me thinking about this are actually my friends and acquaintances from the golf course. Now, I play golf. I'm an accomplished golfer, and so I spend, that's where my social life is. And yet these people are very, very active. They're not the kind that are going to go and spend 3 hours reading around a website. But it's their stories that got me to thinking that, you know what, they have not made notes of their significant achievements,
Yeah.
and they should someday do it. So when I bring up the idea, well, Rob, why are you writing? I said, because, well, I almost died, so I couldn't wait anymore. But I'm pretty healthy, Kathy, and
Yeah.
I could live to be 100,
Yeah. Yeah.
or I could die tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I'm positive now I have left enough of my stories that my great great grandchildren will know who I was, what I went through, how I recovered, all of those things.
And I think that that's really the reason behind why we tell our stories, right? Is though, I go back and I don't mind being voyeuristic in my own life and sharing it. Voyeuristic is the wrong word, actually. I'm not voyeuristic in my own life, but more transparent. Let's put it that way instead.
Yeah,
And what I find is that, when my mother and my father separated when I was 2 years old, I never had a chance to meet my father before he passed away. He died at 67. Sorry, he died at 66. My mother died at the age of 67. Very, very young in life, both of them, and at different times. My sister grew to know my father. And so she was able to sort of tell me a few things after he passed away. uh, I was very, very close with my mother. And so she told me what she could. But at the end of the day, the questions outnumbered by a long shot. My grandmother passed away at 72. My aunts, my uncles on both sides. There's, maybe one or two living relatives left on that side. And then it's my sister Karen and I. And we're the only ones from the immediate Trupp family left.
yeah,
My grandchildren, of course, are from my children, hers from hers. So, we still have a family dynamic, but it's not that immediate place. And one of the things that has disturbed me, and I'm curious about your take on this, is in my life that one of the biggest obstacles that bothers me is I don't know enough about my heritage to be able to pass those stories on. So there's this gap that you go to, what's the name of that, ancestry.com, and you can sort of see my mother's name and my father's name in Alberta, but there's nothing before that. There's nothing to the side of it. And there certainly is just Karen and I left to tell whatever stories we have. So, and I think that that's why people now, that there's an awareness of, wait a minute, we've lost generations and generations of family history. What do we do now? How can we correct that? Because really, as an adult, nearly 60 myself, I turned 60 this year. I know I'm not going to die at 65 or 66 or 67 as my family did. And then again, I don't, right?
Yeah.
But what do I do with those stories? And so I think there's something to be said. And I know that kids these days have changed. They don't want my records, they don't want my photo albums as such, they don't want any of those things. So how do we leave that legacy in a way that they as well want to read it or want to participate in the process?
There are many ways to leave evidence of a life. I think that the most enjoyable way is to go through a life phase by phase, not year by year, but phase by phase, and tell it with the most positive spin possible.
Mhm.
So, for example, you asked about my partners. Well, they've they're not really partners. They're friends who have helped out. They sort of help out part-time and they get paid sort of part-time because we're not a huge corporation like some, but we all share the same passion, and it comes from I wish my parents had of. For
Yes.
example, my father was the person that developed the first knee hinge that didn't require a pin.
Really?
But he worked for the government took the credit, and he never wrote a book. Now, I heard that he watched as he was doing it, and I heard bits and pieces, but not enough of a record. And that is a wonderful humanity story
Huge.
that went
Huge.
to his grave.
Yeah.
Frank's parents, they escaped Europe during World War II. He wishes he knew more about the adventure, because we always hear about the fear and the
Of
poverty and
course. Yeah.
and they ate scraps off of the road, and but do we hear enough about, and when they got to Canada, they built a business, they raised a family, and they died successfully.
Yeah. Yeah.
We didn't get enough of that part. We didn't get enough of he didn't get enough of any of it. So I think that there is, after we get to the age of 50, we start to see life differently. And we realize that it doesn't take that much to create a biography, a memoir. Um, like we can do it for as little as $1,000. So if you think about what people pay to go on a cruise or a vacation, if we can do it inexpensively, but that doesn't mean it's poor quality. The more somebody thinks about, the more pictures they have, the more stories they want to expand on, the longer it takes and the more it costs. But it doesn't get crazy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
our intention isn't to, oh, well, that's going to take another hour and that's going to take another. We don't want to do that.
Mhm.
So when is a book ready? When you say it is, because you're involved in the process all of the way. It's got to be your book, your way, not us telling you how it's done.
And so at the end of the day, you really become, really more than anything else, you become the channel, right? For that information to come through the participants, and that information brought together in such a way that a person who is reading it has got the essence of the individual in the story as well.
Yeah. Yeah, you said that very well. It's
Well,
got to be their essence.
eh,
That's
eh,
what
well,
makes
I,
it exciting.
yeah, and then there's a lot of adventures out there. I've had a lot of guests on my program over the years that have done not what you've done. They've written stories and been published in things like Chicken Soup for the Soul and other places because people and I think people love to read. People like to read paper. I know a lot of my friends do enjoy Kobo and all of those things, but I like turning the pages. And I think that many, many people still do. There's an art to it, I think. Before we go any further, though, I wonder could you please share? Because we told people a few minutes ago to go get their paper and their pen. Now is a perfect time to tell them how they can reach you and how they can read some of the stories that have already been written.
Mhm. Well, the easiest way to reach us is at our website, and they have to type it in because we're actually not visible to search engines yet.
You
We
will
just
be.
sort of finished alpha testing, yet people can still get in if they
Yeah.
type in sensational stories from seniors.com.
Nice and simple, just sensational, all one word,
All
sensational
one word.
seniors from seniors, sensational stories from seniors.com. Let's say that 3 times fast now. Sensational
Sensational
senior
stories for seniors. It's a
from
little
store.
tricky.
It's a little tricky from that regard, but at the end of the day, it's a very simple way to find you. www.sensationalstoriesfromseniors.com. And of course, it will be in the chat box in a little bit. Shawayne,
Yes.
I'm Robin Shawayne. I'm calling you both through this conversation.
Okay.
I do love that you're in honor of your siblings. Were there were there people in your life from a writing perspective that you were influenced by? And I'm moving us away just for a moment of sensational stories, just to get a feel for the genre that you've enjoyed working, reading, supporting over the years. You did share a little bit about your career and talking about the academia part of it, the legal type papers that you needed to write, white papers, I would imagine. But where are we now from from the joyfulness of writing? And what is it that is it this particular genre that keeps you at it, or is there something that you read that kind of tipped you over the edge to make you want to do a little more?
Well, I have always been interested in the books and movies that are more about family or human development, not science fiction, not thrillers. I like romances. Um, but most people that are in business don't get to read a lot. However,
So
if
true.
you're to read great books, I mean, the great books turned into great movies. The Wizard of Oz, It's a Wonderful Life. Those things to me always rank at the top, and they never seem to get supplanted. And I don't write that well. I'm not great. I'm not looking to create bestsellers. If that ever happens, it's accidental. And I wouldn't be encouraging the members to think about, and we're going to write a bestseller, because it gets them down the wrong way of thinking of why are you doing this?
Totally.
It needs to be enjoyable to read, but you're not competing. So tell it like it is. Don't tell it like everyone's telling you, well, this is the way you've got to do it in order for Amazon to put it high. Who cares?
Yeah.
What really matters is what your children will think, children,
Yeah.
grandchildren.
Yeah, no, I understand that entirely. And I think that there's something to be said for that. There's the sensationalism, except for the sensational stories, of course, but the sensationalism around the stories that we read. People are engaged by seeing a connection, right? And I mean, what better connection is there than that with your own family?
I think so. I
It
think so.
has its,
I also I have a lot of high hopes that the community itself will flourish, that people just chatting with other people because they had a similar story, it's kind of like, you know, going down to chapters or something like that with a friend, and you both have different books and you buy different drinks and you read a bit and you chat a bit and you read a bit and you chat a bit because, well, that's what friends do,
Yes.
especially if they're not really, really active, right? Some people are so busy golfing and then hiking and then we'll go biking and then, wow.
Well, and we go through life with various reasons for reading and various timelines for which we can do it. In a young family, it's not so easy to sit down and read until the kids have gone to bed. We are often, divided by the chores of the house or the responsibilities of the job or whatever that keep us from actually investing in that really great novel. So the quality of what we read sometimes becomes very important. And again, if you're reading about a family member, then there's that connection, that bridge that helps to sort of solidify. Well, I thought I knew my grandmother, but hey, wait a minute, right? So I encourage people
Yes.
to consider that as an option. Has it been mostly in your own personal writing? Because you've mentioned a few times about your love of golf, and of course, you have written a book called "Don't Let Anger Ruin Your Love for Golf." Tell us a little bit about that. Were you just walking in, tell us about the book?
It's filled with humor. So
Yes.
many years ago, a friend of mine gave me a golf calendar with these little tiny quotes on it, page by page. And every day I would start off with some kind of quote. But the reality is that I now play golf with some very wonderful, kind people. We don't bet and we don't gamble. But I was also competitive for a long time, and I watched a lot of anger and club breaking and club throwing and swearing and, oh my goodness. Oh no, wait a minute. I didn't watch it. That was the mirror. It was me. So the book, it's got these 7 real life stories. Some of them are humorous and some of them are actually very embarrassing. But I don't mind admitting it because I had to learn to stop being angry.
Mm,
But just because I won club championships, one up at Fairwinds, um, it doesn't really make me an authority. Who are you to tell me? So I decided that I would write the book in a humorous way because there are truths that shouldn't feel like commandments, more like
understood.
suggestions.
Yeah, understood.
And
And I,
those,
I resonate with the golfing component of it. I mean, I'm not a golfer. I do charity golf type thing. And so, I'm always curious why people want to go 16 holes. I have a lot of friends who golf, by the way. They go 16 holes, they get exhausted. But I remember doing a charity event many, many, many years ago. And my friend, who I thought was pretty level headed, like a pretty level headed human, and he missed a shot, and I guess in his mind it was an easy shot, and so he was choked. And I will never forget him taking his iron and wrapping it over his knees, whipping it over his shoulder. And I mean, I think that that particular event he threw away 3 or 4 golf clubs. He was just like, and every one of them was a temper tantrum, right? And so I didn't never played with him again, I might add. I didn't enjoy that, but it was funny now to look back on it because I know that a lot of people do that. It's a
well,
stress relief.
there's a part in the book where I talk about how golf can turn brilliant people into strangers. So I was lucky enough to play with Dr. Paul. That's not his real name. And he was a neurovascular surgeon. And he had like 20 letters after his name. He's brilliant.
Yeah.
He'd get on the golf course and it wouldn't take long before he's going, stupid, stupid, stupid. Now, here's one of the smartest men in the
Yeah.
country calling himself names, but it wasn't once.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, in how should I say, in describing the story, I also had to decipher why. What would it be that would cause a brilliant person to call himself stupid?
Yes.
And that's actually one of the fun stories. because this stupid, if my mom heard me saying stupid, I'd get a whack in the back of the head. But that's exactly what he said. And he would call himself that through the whole round.
Yeah, it's so funny how and people are very hard on themselves on the golf course as well because it's and it like and I do wonder whether or not sure because they have such stressful jobs and even if they don't, but people that where they that's a release for them to be able to say, okay, I'm supposed to be having fun now, but I've been carrying this burden that's under the skin around for so long. Now I'm on the golf course, I missed that shot, and then kaboom, it's a much safer, I suppose, way to process it than when you're, holding your knife over your heart patient and you're about to take that sliver, right? So I think there's something to be said about that. Listen, we're nearing the end of the program, so just before we go on, because I do want to get your wisdom and all of that stuff. But before we do that, I think it's important that we give another shout out to how people can find you. So let's start with that. How do people get to read some of this incredible work?
Well, just by visiting the website, they're going to get a free book, and which explains an awful lot of the concept and how we hope to treat members and why they would want to be one. That book is called What is the Relevance of Time? And so they just come to the website, Sensational Stories from Seniors. They can look at 2 pages, or they can hit the button and listen to me narrate 2 pages. And then they'll see a whole bunch of topics that are available to members. So if they give us their name and where to send the book, we will send them a free book. And that is enough for them to be a member.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Nice and easy.
Yeah, we want to ease people in. We don't want to rush or push. That's just not what seniors generally like. And so I've been trained by all of the 30 and 40 somethings, and their way of marketing isn't my way, but their wisdom was still educational.
I am entirely confident of that. I know that, young people really have, yeah, they've got such a bigger pulse on the technology side of things and the websites and all of that stuff. They really know how to do it. In the meantime, though, if you've just tuned in, you're listening to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM. My guest, Robin Curtin, otherwise known as Shawayne. Shawayne, what was your last name again?
Sherobins.
Sherobins, Sherobins. And Sherobins. I'm writing that down at the same time because I want to share that. Sherobins. He is the owner, proprietor of www.sensationalstoriesfromseniors.com and could very well help you to navigate your family story. And I think it's a brilliant idea. If you can do that, absolutely check him out on the website. It's, I think, a brilliant idea. And I love sharing that concept of having older adults really tell their story because too much of it is lost. I wish that I could have had my family tell me more so that I could share it with my grandchildren. I pray that I'm able to leave a story behind for my grandchildren's grandchildren walking ahead. Let's plan for the future in that regard. It's been a delightful conversation with you today, Robin. Thank you so much for being my guest on Act 3. Before we end the call today, or before we end the program, I beg your pardon, tell me, if you could imbibe a piece of wisdom onto somebody, what might that look like?
I think the easiest way to live life is to try to be happy.
Yeah.
Our website wants people to be happy. And unfortunately, there's enough going on in the world that doesn't make us happy. It unsettles us. I would love it. I think it'd be a home run if people decided to turn off the evening news, come into our website, and go to a little place called Nightcaps. Short stories intended to put you to sleep.
So you have short stories intended to put you to sleep? That's a
Well,
wonderful concept.
because they're collections of people's memories,
Yeah,
but they didn't really have a a 40,000 word novel. But
right.
I believe that people, if they finish their day with happy thoughts, think of Wizard of Oz. If you finish your day with a happy thought, you'll sleep deeply, you'll dream vividly, and you'll wake up refreshed and happy. Tomorrow's another day.
Well, I have to tell you, I don't want to go to sleep right now, but come time when I do, I'll be tuning in as well to your website, which again is www.sensationalstoriesfromseniors.com. Robin Curtin, Shawayne, Sherobins, it has been a delight to meet with you today. Thank you so much for joining our program.
Thank you for having me, Kathy.
Well, that does it for another episode of Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM. Once again, please take care of each other. I am just so delighted that we're leaving this conversation on a happy note. I hope your soul has been filled. I know mine has. Thanks again and have a great day, everybody. We'll see you next time on Act 3.